That's what I figured. I am tech challenged, everybody. So luckily Jaren's here to help us out. My name is Sarah Draper. I'm the Student Success Coordinator. Prior to that, I taught sociology and social work for altogether 14 years. And prior to that, I did do mental health counseling. So when I think test anxiety, I think anxiety. I think bigger picture. I've worked with a lot of people that have anxiety. Anxiety is a very normal feeling. All of us feel anxious at times. It becomes a problem when we're doing things like taking tests or when it interferes with our activities of daily living. So I have put a PowerPoint together, and I know that's kind of boring. I'm not expecting anyone to take notes. It is available to you via Canvas, and I'm going to show you how to get there. But if you're like me, you like to have something to look at, something that you can refer back to. So I'm going to screen share. And like I said before, if you need to ask a question or make a comment, you can unmute yourself. Okay. So here we go. Nope. I had my Canvas pulled up. Let's see if I can get back to it real quick. All right, can you guys see my dashboard?
No, we can't.
Can I get a yes or no?
I can't,
Nope.
Sarah.
Okay. Okay. Let me try the screen share again. Share screen. Ah, there we go. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. You guys are on a bit of a delay. I hope I'm not on a delay. I generally have a really good internet connection out here, which is another reason I decided to go ahead and use the back porch. I'm right by my internet router and all that good stuff. So once you log into Canvas, you'll see your dashboard. The RL Cares course just became available today. So it's something I've been working on, and it's available for every student. Once you go to that, you're going to see that there's a link to ULifeline, which is a mental health platform. There are a lot of resources. It's an online platform that you can use. So I would highly recommend that you check that out if you haven't already. There is a link to that on our website as well. So you've probably heard about it, but this gives you easy access. There's also the community resource booklet, and there's hotlines and crisis lines. And so that's just a list that's easy and convenient for you. Then I've got a little bit of information about coping during the coronavirus, but down here I've got this PowerPoint about test anxiety. So that's what I'm going to pull up. So I wanted to show you guys how to get there. Okay, so I would ask who has test anxiety, but if you're here, I'm guessing this is something that has affected you. Like I said, anxiety is normal. We all feel anxious from time to time, but it does become a problem if you're trying to pass a test, especially if it's a test that might mean the difference in passing a class or not. And as I put this together, I was trying to think about, from a student point of view, when I've had test anxiety and how I dealt with that. And so I kind of thought back to taking finals, and I realized that I have had more test anxiety in the past than I originally thought. So. Okay, so it's the type of performance anxiety, and it can result in emotional, behavioral, and cognitive symptoms. And what that means is that you can feel physically bad, you can have thoughts that are upsetting, and you can actually get stuck in kind of a loop of negative thinking if you have anxiety or test anxiety. Test anxiety increases your adrenaline, right? Anxiety does that to us. And you've all probably learned about fight and flight, right? So are you ready to, fight the bear, or are you ready to run away? Looks like we've got one more that's joined us. So I just want to say hello. I can't see your name. But it looks like we've got somebody who's just joined us. We've got a chat. That's what's going on. Okay. Sarah, I can only see half your slide. All right, thanks for the chat. I have no idea what to do about that. All right. What about the rest of you?
Scroll
Can
down
you
on your
see
page a
the?
little bit.
Okay. I'm going to apologize for my, I tried to do a test earlier, but when it's not live, it's hard to do a test on how it's going to work. Okay. Oh, there's what we need to do. Make it a little smaller. No, that didn't work. Okay. All right, guys, I apologize. I'm not sure if you can see my words, and it might just be easier for me to talk, and then you can look at this material later, if that's okay with everybody. I know that's kind of distracting. I'm not sure that I can actually see what you see because I'm seeing everything just fine.
Hey, Sarah.
Uh-huh.
Sarah, can you hear me? Hey, can you scroll? Do we
Yeah, I
see
can.
the Canvas website?
Okay.
You can see the Canvas website. Are you trying to pull up a PowerPoint you just downloaded?
Yeah, I can see the PowerPoint just fine. It was sharing my screen, so I'm not sure what's happened. And why you guys can't
all you have
see
to
that.
do is just tell it to, at the top, just take off or stop sharing your screen, and then go back
Okay.
down and reshare your screen again, selecting page 1, and then select screen 1. So whatever is on your screen, they'll be able to see it.
Okay. Okay. Goodness. All right, my lack of expertise when it comes to technology is making this a bit of a problem. So I think if it's okay with you guys, can I just talk and you follow along? And then, like I said, the materials will be available for you in Canvas. Are you able to see my face?
Yes, we can see
Yeah,
you.
we can see that, Sarah. We can see.
Okay.
We
All
can
right.
see your
That should
website
work
there.
then.
If you scroll down your Canvas page just a little bit, you'll be good.
Okay. All right. New share. Is that better?
Yeah, that's
There
better.
we go. Now we see the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
I'm gonna. Oh, okay, good. All right. Thanks so much. I'm really sorry about that. I might need to take a workshop on how to appropriately use Zoom. Okay, so test anxiety. This can cause you to feel emotional. You can find yourself acting in strange ways, maybe thinking strange thoughts if you're experiencing anxiety. You know, if you've had anxiety before, you know, you can really get caught up in your head and your adrenaline will increase. And like I mentioned before, this is, I think, where I stopped because of the screen sharing issue. You might have that fight or flight feeling, right? So do I fight through this? Do I run away from this? Am I going to skip this test, or am I going to go in and just do the best I can do? There's actually a third response that people sometimes have that's not always mentioned when it comes to the research, but that's the freeze response. So maybe you're not fight or flight, maybe you freeze up and you find yourself sort of immobilized. If you've ever been in the middle of taking the test and you're like, I just can't answer questions anymore, chances are you sort of froze up, and that was an adrenaline response to your test anxiety. So you might feel excessive sweating, you might actually shake, right? Your hands might shake, you might have a rapid heartbeat, your mouth might get dry, or you might feel sick to your stomach, right? Those are typical anxiety symptoms. You might feel negative, right? So emotional symptoms of test anxiety, low self-esteem, even depression, other mental health issues. And a big part of it is negative self-talk. So it's that idea of, I can't do this, I'm not going to pass this. And it's easy to get stuck in that loop of negative thoughts. And just really sort of talk yourself out of being able to succeed or being able to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. So on the extreme end of that spectrum, people might actually engage in self-harm. They might, instead of skipping a test, just drop out of school altogether. Or you might see that this becomes a part of something bigger, so continued anxiety and depression, right? So there's obviously a connection there. If you already have anxiety, you might then have test anxiety, or your test anxiety might actually become so serious that you develop anxiety or depression or other mental health concerns as a result. And obviously, at that point, I think it would be a good idea to see your doctor and or your mental health provider. If you don't have a mental health provider, then take a look at that resource booklet there in the Canvas course that I showed you, because there is a list, and you can email me too, and I can try to connect you with somebody. So what causes us to feel this way, right? Why do some people get test anxiety and others don't? We all have that fear of failure, but it comes out at different times and for different reasons for different people. So maybe you have a fear of failure when it comes to something in your personal life, where somebody else might have a fear of failure when it comes to their test taking, right? Because they're stressed about the future, not only passing the class, but getting the degree, making, X amount of money, getting the new job, that sort of thing. So fear of failure can come into play. Past experiences, if you've not traditionally been a good test taker, then it makes sense that you might have some test anxiety. Also, if this is a new experience, if you're taking a class unlike any class you've ever taken, if you're not really familiar with the material, if it's very challenging for you, that can cause you to have test anxiety. So you might find yourself in a situation where you felt fine taking tests up to a certain point, and now you're having test anxiety. Maybe there are things going on in your personal life, maybe there are things going on at work, or maybe it's this class. You've never taken a class like this. So, when we step outside of our comfort zone, when we do new things, which is awesome, right? It's good to have those challenges. We can also experience some anxiety because of that. Maybe you don't see value in the class. You don't like the class. You don't like the instructor, and that can cause you to have some anxiety about taking tests. Like I said, having anxiety in general, so if you experience anxiety in other aspects of your life, or if life in general has kind of gotten the best of you, and that happens to all of us sometimes, things like time constraints, other responsibilities, trying to work and go to school, and or work or go to school and be a parent, there's a lot of responsibility associated with that. So anxiety can result in those situations. And then, of course, pressure from family and peers. A lot of people are afraid of failure because they don't want to let other people down. So it's not always about ourselves and being afraid that we're going to fail. It's that we don't want to look like a failure to our parents or our spouse or the other people in our program. We all doing good? I know you guys are on mute, but if anybody wants to give me a thumbs up or anything like that, that'd be great. Okay, so here's the important part. Here's why we're here, right? To talk about strategies. Strategies can look different for different people, right? Thanks for the thumbs up, Holly. Not everybody is the same, right? So these causes and these symptoms I listed so that you could kind of evaluate yourself. Well, gosh, this is what I think is causing anxiety for me. So that might dictate the kind of strategy that you use in order to be able to prevent or cope with test anxiety. To me, this is the absolute biggest thing. You have got to be as prepared as possible. So if you're the kind of person that's like, I'm just going to go take the test, I'm just going to wing it, that's not being very prepared. And you might find yourself, as the time gets closer, getting really stressed out because you know that you're not really prepared. You haven't studied, you haven't talked to your instructor. You may not even know what the test is over. As an instructor, I can't tell you how many times I've had students ask me, what chapters does a final exam cover? Well, it's typically in the syllabus, right? But maybe you've lost that. Or maybe, we had a lot of snow days, and so we've had to change up the schedule a little bit. And if you weren't paying attention, you might not know what chapters are being covered. So it is good to ask, but it's also good to be prepared in the first place and to come to class, to be studying, to be reading. If you're able to take a practice test, I know sometimes there's options to do that, sometimes there's not. So know what the test is over, set aside a time to study. When I say communicate with your instructor, that can mean a lot of things, right? That can mean, can you help me with this? Can you direct me to a tutor so that I can be better prepared? Or that might actually mean communicating with them about your test anxiety. I've had students tell me, I have really bad test anxiety. If I get up and bolt in the middle of an exam, I'm probably just going to take a deep breath, get a drink of water, and I'll be right back. And usually that fear, right, that's there doesn't actually manifest into the student getting up and leaving class, but occasionally that's happened. Knowing really helps us to be able to help you. And one of the biggest things, don't procrastinate. We are all procrastinators in some respects, right? Because we all lead busy lives. You can't do everything all the time. And so in order to be prepared, you've got to actually plan out some time in order to study, right? If you wait till the last minute, you're going to find that you've probably ran out of time. Okay, so this is more cognitive behavioral, which means our thinking influences what we do, right? Positive self-talk is huge. I fully believe in this. And there's a lot of research to back it up, and we've probably all seen, everything from studies and research articles to memes on Facebook about positive self-talk. If you believe that you're going to fail, you are more likely to fail. If you believe that you're going to pass, you're more likely to pass. That doesn't mean that you're going to, but you are more likely to. You've got to put that thought and that action in place together. So you've got to tell yourself, I'm prepared for this while actually preparing, right? While studying. And when it comes time to take the test, it's important to tell yourself, I've done the best that I can do. I have prepared for this. I am going to pass this, or I'm going to get as good of a grade as I possibly can, right? So you're setting yourself up in your mind to pass, and that's going to help you to follow through with behavior. And I know that's one of those, hello. I know that's one of those, I think somebody else may have joined us. Telling yourself that you're going to do well is easier said than done sometimes, because again, we might get in that loop of negative thinking, or it might seem silly, right, to give yourself a pep talk, but those things really do help. Visualization kind of goes along with the positive self-talk. If you have studied, if you are prepared, if you are feeling good, you can visualize yourself passing that test. A lot of people with test anxiety will actually visualize themselves failing, right? And they'll catastrophize in their head what's going to happen if they do fail. And so they'll start thinking about all of these terrible negative things that can happen as a result of them failing, right? It hasn't happened, but they're setting that reality up in their head. So if you can set up that I'm going to pass this test reality up in your head, the visualization coupled with the self-talk is going to increase your chance of being able to conquer that test anxiety. Here's another thing that's easier said than done. Realize that you're not perfect. right? All of that pressure that you put on yourself and that other people put on you, you know, we all do that. It's part of our culture. I think it's part of being human. But if you study, if you prepare, right? If you tell yourself, I'm doing the best that I can, and then you do the best that you can do, don't beat yourself up when you fail, right? Allow yourself to make some mistakes. Allow yourself the freedom to learn from those mistakes. Hi, somebody have a question? No? Okay, I thought somebody turned their microphone off. It's kind of hard for me to see what you all are doing. We still doing good? Okay, looks like maybe some, okay, good, thanks. I feel like I'm just talking to a screen and I'm really not used to that. I thought, you know, I might have some anxiety because I'm not used to doing this. So I'm trying to practice what I preach, right? Okay. Other strategies, right? And some of these might speak to you more than others. Maybe you're not somebody who likes to exercise, but it is easy for you to engage in the self-talk. Pick what works best for you, right? So this is all about self-care. We take care of ourselves. If we set ourselves up to succeed, of course, we're more likely to succeed. And these are all things that you already know probably, but it's good to have that reminder. So exercising helps to get endorphins out. I walk 5 days a week. Unfortunately, that has not helped me with weight loss, but it helps me to stay sane. And that's a big part of the reason that I continue to do it. So it's nice to get outside this time of year and see the sunshine. But it's also really nice to see the benefit of not being so stressed, right? If I'm feeling stressed and I walk, I feel better. So I know that benefit is there, right? Deep breathing. If you're somebody who meditates, I would recommend doing that. If you're not, then you might want to check out YouTube or put an app on your phone, and there are some suggestions. Personally, I have not used those, but I have read about all of them. And the one in particular that I have some friends who use, it's the Calm one. So that's one that I know is recommended. Okay. So get enough sleep, right? This is, again, something else that's easier said than done. I'm a night owl and I have to get up every day. So sometimes, and this sounds really silly, I'll set an alarm for myself to go to bed and to wake up. You know, we live in the world of technology. Use your phone to your advantage. Set an alarm for study time. Set an alarm for bedtime, right? Send that reminder to yourself. Maybe you have an app that actually sends you reminders or lets you count down to things. So I am not an expert when it comes to technology, but I know just about everything we can think of has been created, and many of those apps are free, right? So use those that help you with the deep breathing, but also use those that help to remind you to get enough sleep. Another one, and I know, again, this is easier said than done, eat healthy and hydrate, right? And I don't mean drink energy drinks all night long or caffeine all day, because you're gonna crash, right? That's just biology. You're gonna crash if you stay up all night drinking energy drinks and your exam isn't until noon the next day. By the time you get there, you're not gonna feel very good. This is probably, if you're doing this, it's probably part of a bigger issue, but self-medicating with drugs and alcohol or engaging in self-harm. You know, on the extreme end of the scale, people who experience test anxiety can do that. And again, you know, that's probably part of a bigger issue that you might need to talk with your doctor or therapist about. But if you find yourself doing those things, right, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whether it's, you know, never sleeping, just eating junk, do a little bit of reflection, right? You might find that the cause of those things are some of the anxieties that you're feeling. Okay, so we've talked about cognitive behavioral, we've talked about self-care, we've talked about the importance of being prepared, which is just absolutely huge. And next here, I've got grounding techniques. So if you do have anxiety and you've tried to treat that, grounding is a familiar term to you. If you've never experienced anxiety, or if this is a new term, basically what this means is that you're going to keep yourself in check with reality, right? If your anxiety is bad, you might actually kind of feel out of your head or out of your body. If you're sitting in a classroom taking a test or waiting for a test to begin, that might mean that you are almost removed from the situation, right? And you're kind of off in la la land, or you're almost like looking at yourself from an outside point of view. It might mean that you're not able to really focus on what's going on around you. So in order to do well in the present moment, you've got to be focused on the present moment. You've got to be grounded. And the best way to ground yourself probably is to use your senses, right? There are some other things you do. Going to therapy can be very helpful. Keeping a journal, doing a reflection can be very helpful. But when you're in the moment, you've got to use your senses. So look around the room and focus on something that can help to bring you back to reality, right? Something that reminds you where you're at and what you're doing. And that might mean, focusing on an individual like the teacher, or it might mean focusing on the whiteboard, or, a painting that's hanging up in the room, something that kind of brings you back to reality. In terms of our senses, touch, some people are very tactile. Wear comfortable clothing. Don't wear something that's going to annoy you or stress you out, or something that's itchy. Bring bottled water, right? I mentioned earlier that one of the physical symptoms of test anxiety is dry mouth. So if you are sitting there just parched, it's going to be difficult for you to focus. And of course, if you are, taking a test in a computer lab, you may not be able to bring in, a big swig of tea or something like that. Check with your instructor, but if you can, bring in bottled water, or bring in tea, or whatever makes you feel comfortable. Or ask, if I start to feel anxious, is it okay if I step out into the hall and get a drink from the water fountain? A lot of people use essential oils for aromatherapy. That's something that's, I think, a personal preference. You might want to wear your favorite scents. If you can smell that on your shirt, it might kind of alleviate some of the stress that you're feeling, and again, help bring you back to reality. For the sake of other people, I would recommend probably not wearing a lot of perfume or a lot of oils, but that is something that can be very helpful. I used to hate the smell of lavender. Now I love it. So it's really weird. It's one of those things that, I kind of developed a taste for, and now I really like that smell. Okay, and avoid loud, I've got a typo there. Avoid loud or distracting noises if possible. I know sometimes that's difficult if you're studying at home, if you're taking a test in a room with other people, but if you are able to prevent those distractions, then do prevent those distractions. All right. I feel like I'm just talking to you guys. I just want to remind you, if you have a question or a comment, go ahead and unmute your microphone and holler at me, or give me that thumbs up or that waving hand, and I'll say, hey, what's going on? Okay. So I don't want to just talk at you, but I do want you guys to be able to engage if you want to do that. And I'll take questions at the end, of course. Okay, so we're back to strategies. I'm trying to give you as many as I could think of, or as I could find while I was doing research. A lot of these I found, if you Google test anxiety, you're going to find a lot of the same information over and over. Some of these are things that I've just always used or told my students to use. So, I've gotten a little bit creative with that. I probably learned them years ago and couldn't find them when I was doing my research, but I do have some resources for you there at the end. Okay, so back to strategies. When it comes to taking a test on campus or in a room that you've been in before, it's a good idea to use your usual seat. I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, but in college, most seats are not assigned. So when you get to a classroom, you just kind of sit wherever you want to sit. Sitting in your usual seat is going to help you to feel the most comfortable. That's where you learn the material. Right? And there is something, if you study psychology, called state-dependent learning, that tells us that we tend to remember things in the environment that we learned them in. So if you can get to class a little bit early, get your comfortable seat, maybe go over the material in there, that can actually help you. If you're an online student, or of course right now we're all stuck at home trying to navigate what that means when it comes to being a student, try taking the test in the same room, or maybe the same chair as you use to study. So if you study in the kitchen, but then you go into the bedroom to take your test, you might not feel as comfortable. And I know that sounds silly, but it's something worth trying, right? Because you learned that material sitting at your kitchen table, right? That's where your brain stored that information. So it might help you to feel a little less anxious and be a little bit more prepared if that's the same place that you take the test. Set aside a specific time of day. You may be right at home right now with 3 other people. Some of them may be, very loud for whatever reason. If you live with a toddler, it's going to be very difficult to find some quiet time. So you're going to have to really plan accordingly, think about your day and what that looks like, and actually study when you know the house is going to be as quiet as possible. Or maybe lock yourself in the bathroom for a little bit. Again, I would recommend taking your test around that same time of day in that same place, right? So all of those factors coming together might help you feel more comfortable and retain that information a little bit better. Think about your location to internet. I've had a lot of students tell me, I'm afraid I'm going to get kicked off. Like, I feel pretty prepared, but my internet connection is not always stable. So think about that. Is there a certain time of day or a certain place where you get the best internet connection? If you live out in the country like Vicky, that might be hard to do. But if you live where, your internet connection is pretty constant, but it's better in the living room than it is in the bedroom, I would recommend taking your test and studying, of course, in the living room if at all possible, so that you don't have that worry hanging over your head the whole time, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get kicked off of here. And then if you can, set up the room to be comfortable before starting the test. If you're thirsty, if you're hungry, if you are, anxious because the house is a mess, do what you can first to be comfortable before taking that test. Put the toys in the toy chest, get the bottle of water, whatever you need to do to stay focused. Being at home right now, a lot of us, myself included, it's really hard to focus. That's why I hang out here on the porch a lot. My dogs tend to be quiet when I'm out here. I live with 2 other people and they tend to leave me alone when I'm out here. So, find a place where you can be comfortable and where you can, hopefully alleviate some of those distractions. Okay. So bigger picture, right? And I've mentioned some of this already, I think. If we're talking about test anxiety, we have to think about anxiety as a whole. One of the things that I would recommend doing specifically for test anxiety or for anxiety is to keep a reflection or a journal of what you've tried and what's worked, right? So I gave you strategies that related to thought process, self-care, grounding, environment. Which of those are easiest for you? Which of those can you control? Which of those speak to your personality or your study habits, right? Maybe I'm a big list maker. I used to keep a journal. If I'm stressed out, I like to do a lot of writing and get my feelings out. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not. But keep at least in your head an idea of what has worked the best for you so that you can try those things in the future and maybe eliminate some of those other strategies that didn't work so well. Counseling, right? I see another typo there. I've got to address text anxiety. I'm sure that's probably a real thing these days, but that should say test anxiety. If you especially are experiencing this on a regular basis, or if you're experiencing other mental health issues, anxiety about, lots of things, I would recommend seeing a counselor, somebody that you can process this with, somebody that you can talk to. There could be something else going on, even something physical. It wouldn't be a bad idea to see your doctor if you're able to, maybe get some blood work done. Sometimes our emotional and mental health problems are relative to our physical health. So it's good to look at yourself as a holistic person, because you are, right? Maybe there are some other things going on that are causing this anxiety. There's a bigger picture, especially if it's something that's just developed out of the blue. It could be that there are other issues at play. Medication. I'm not somebody who says, everybody should go out and take medication. I've always believed that you should probably try counseling and some other less invasive strategies first. But here's the thing, sometimes we need medication, or we need it in combination with counseling and other techniques. The reason why I've not always advocated to, go out and take medication, get an anxiety med, whatever, is because they all have side effects. And some of those effects can be great, and some of those can be detrimental. So if you believe taking a medication is going to help you to manage your anxiety, talk to your doctor, right? Maybe you've tried everything else, or maybe other things are working, but you need just a little bit more. You need to see that doctor, psychiatrist for regular monitoring. I would recommend taking a genetic test. That's kind of a new thing. There's something called a gene site test, and you can Google that. That's actually pretty easy and pretty affordable. It's just not mainstream yet, so there are some doctors who know about it and some who are still just learning. But you can, be your own best advocate and learn some, Google that and learn a little bit of information if you'd like. And then, of course, if you do start taking medication and you're feeling worse or you're having feelings of suicide, talk to your doctor, tell your family, call 911. So I know that's kind of a bigger issue, but I certainly want to address that, because if we're talking about anxiety, mental health is very important. Okay. So those are the primary strategies that I have. I tried to start with what I thought was easiest and then kind of move on to other things. Again, what's easiest, be prepared, right? Get that good night's sleep, wear your most comfortable clothing, study in a safe and environment with not very much distraction. And then, of course, if things aren't working, talk to a counselor, talk to a doctor. And again, I want to remind you to talk to your teachers. Let them know what's going on. Maybe it's just that you need to get some tutoring or something like that to help you understand the material and feel a little bit better about your test taking abilities. So what I want to do now is, if you want to take your microphone off mute, and I might be able to unmute you. Yeah, hey, Holly's microphone's off mute. Okay, you don't have to, but if you'd like to take your microphone off mute, tell me what works for you. And this could be test anxiety or anxiety in general. Do I hear a kid? Maybe I heard a dog. I heard a background noise. I'm not sure what it was. Just something to think about. Here's the thing. This is a pretty small group. Not everybody knows everybody. You might not want to talk about your anxiety. That might produce more anxiety. But ask your friends, right? Most people feel anxiety at some point in their life. A lot of people have test anxiety. It may be, over finals, or it could be every test. It could be certain classes. It could be certain programs. Some things might be easier or harder for you. But really talk to your friends and ask them what's worked for them, because they might have some insight and you might be able to try some of their strategies if you're at a loss for yourself there. Anybody questions, comments, or suggestions before I move on, though? Okay. All right, so I don't want to overwhelm you. I think I gave you the most basic and manageable and important strategies. Again, there are some things that you might find for yourself if you do a little bit more research, but I do want to give you my contact information. Like I said, I'm the student success coordinator. I have been a teacher and I have worked in mental health, so I hope that I gave you a little bit of insight about this topic, maybe some thought that you hadn't, or some things you hadn't already thought about. But there's my email, there's my phone number. I am checking messages right now. And then once we're back on campus, I'm in admin office 121, which is around the corner from advisement. And this information is all in Canvas in that course. I don't know what else to call it, that module there that's in the Canvas, for everybody to see. So, and then here are just some of the resources that I used, just so I, am not plagiarizing, of course, but then also so that if you want, you can look at some of these websites and articles yourself. So, all right, everybody. How was that? Questions, comments, anything?
No.
I apologize for the crazy issues at the beginning, tech issues, I guess we'll call them. I am so tech challenged. I've been on plenty of Zoom calls in the last couple of weeks, but I'm usually not the host, so. All right. Looks like you can put things in the chat if anybody wants to do that. Thought I had something there, but now I don't see it. There we go. All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Please, if you have questions, feel free to email me. These are things I think about and talk about all the time because of the courses I teach and the kind of job that I do. So, you know, some of this I feel like I rushed through, but I hope there was something new here that you guys could use or something that you hadn't maybe thought about before that you can put into place. I can't stress enough the importance of self-care, making sure you get a good night's sleep, doing some of that deep breathing. You know, just admittingly, I've taught hundreds of classes in the last decade and a half, and especially on the first day of school, I will still feel anxious because it's the first day, right? I don't know maybe if I'm going to have students who I've never had before, who have, you know, heard things about me, and we know that first impression is important, and so you kind of go in there blindly. And anytime we do something new or different, it makes sense that we're going to have a little bit of anxiety. So I will take deep breaths before I walk into the classroom on that first day, just to kind of calm myself. And, you know, and then I'll tell myself, hey, you've been doing this for a long time. You got it, right? That positive self-talk stuff really is important. So I do try to practice what I preach. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. And if you guys want to stay on, you know, if you have a private question or something, that's fine. Otherwise, I want to wish you good luck on your finals. You've got hopefully some time this weekend to find some nice, quiet study area and get a good night's sleep before you start those finals on Monday. So good luck, everybody. And if you happen to be graduating, congratulations. And if you need anything, please feel free to email me or give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, Jaren, I think you're the only one on there. So I'm going to pause recording or stop video. That's what I need to do, right? All right.